What up? What up? Welcome to another episode with Debate with Bait podcast, brought to you by Most Serious Entertainment in the heart of Missouri City, Texas. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. Charles Baker, aka C Bake, sitting alongside my co-host, Mr. Gerard Cole, aka Rule Boy. Before we get started, make sure you follow Most Serious Entertainment on Instagram and Facebook. Also click that like button. Subscribe to Most Serious Entertainment on YouTube. What up, bro? What's going on, Cole?
I'm chilling, man. It's been a crazy week, man. Crazy week in sports, crazy week in real life, but we're going to get into it tonight, man. We're going to get into it.
That's right. Amen. Amen to that, brother. It's a lot going on in the sports world. Unfortunately, we cannot get to everything tonight, but we will get to some polarizing topics tonight. As things start to change in the NBA, we got a little bit of NFL news for you, and we are going to go a little bit into the entertainment world, and particularly the rap world, where we talk about the most recent death of Migos member Takeoff. But before we get to that, let's jump right into some NFL news. So just off yesterday, ex-chief assistant and son of Andy Reid, Britt Reid, gets 3-year prison sentence, was sentenced 3 years in prison for drunk driving, speeding, and hitting two parked cars, leaving a 5-year-old girl with a serious brain injury. Now, the charge he was given was, I think, drunk driving, assault, and the charge carries a maximum penalty of 7 years in prison. But prosecutors on this case has agreed to ask for a maximum sentence of 4 years, which Reid actually gets a 3-year prison sentence. The question that we're asking today, and we'll debate about, is this fair? Barring what happened with this young lady, she ended up being seriously injured. It's kind of a weird situation to me in the sense that, causing seriously bodily injury. Again, the maximum penalty is 7 years. Reid only getting 3 years. Is this fair, Cole? How do you feel about this? This sounds a little bit unusual to me. How do you feel about this? I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen this particular charge only being 3 years in prison. Tell me how you feel about that.
I definitely feel as he's been undercharged, and for a few reasons. And first of all, my information is coming from ESPN News Services from November 1st, 2022. I know previously he was in a drug treatment program that he graduated from in 2009. So he's had a habitual drug, what I would say, addiction.
Right.
And obviously he wasn't over it, being drunk and driving over the limit. When you hit a little girl and now she has brain damage and you only get 3 years of a possible 7-year sentence, that tells me a lot about having a good lawyer, tells me a lot about white privilege, because I can't see myself, and this is just me and how I feel, as a Black male being able to get away with that. Even if I had a lower alcohol content, just the fact that I would have been drinking, I'm pretty sure I would have saw the full 7 years, and they probably would have found some other way to throw some extra charges on it. But I'm not going to play the race card, but I am going to play the white privilege and having money card. When you have a father who's a prominent NFL, coach who's on a winning Super Bowl team and who has a lot of money, that comes into play with a lot of different things. You know how in politics, judges, everything. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I am saying that he has a advantage when it comes to, being able to get out of, these tough situations. And it's unfortunate because the little girl is brain damaged. And I honestly feel like her parents, her family didn't get due justice. So.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's crazy. And I have to agree with you again on to have money, the social economic status of this. I mean, it says that he had a blood alcohol level of 0.113 2 hours after the crash, and the legal limit, of course, is 0.8. And just to hear this, just to speak to what you're saying about justice, to hear this family say, no amount of prison time will ever be enough to punish the defendant for the pain and suffering he caused his family, and the ongoing difficulties that Ariel, which is the little girl, the victim, will continue to endure for the rest of her life. I mean, she's been affected for the rest of her life. And so it is definitely privilege. It is definitely having money. I also want to throw in, I'm not going to say, I wouldn't necessarily call it celebrity status, but just because of the fact that his father is, you know, a longtime NFL head coach, that also plays into it along with the social economic status. Um, it's
And
just
I
crazy to me, man. It's crazy. What state was this in, Cole? Do you know? Was
this
this is
this
in
was in
this is
Kansas
in
City,
Missouri,
Missouri.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And to add to that, like I don't mean to just talk about white privilege just to talk white privilege, but it says before sentencing, a victim impact statement from Ariel's mother, Felicia Miller, was read into the record. She said that 5 victims of the crash were offended that Reid sought probation and they did not accept his apologies for his actions. The family opposed the plea deal. Like just the audacity to say, "Give me probation. I just gave your daughter brain injuries and she's brain damaged, and I want probation." That goes to show you what type of white privilege. Like, how do you have the audacity to do that when a
Right.
little girl's in the hospital, brain dead? It's
Yeah,
sad, man.
it's crazy to me. It's crazy. It you know, it's even hard for me to even debate on this because I'm so shell shocked about this. Only 3 years, and then you know they're probably going to make it as comfortable as possible for him. You know, it's just weird, and barring his history of drug use and alcohol use, um, it's just amazing to me. You know, it's astonishing to me. I really,
Yep.
when I saw this, we talked about this, and when you sent this rather last night, I was like, wow, I don't even know how to debate about this. But it definitely needs to be talked about because this is just ludicrous to me. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't even know how to put that into words because the thing is, somebody's going to suffer for the rest of their life because
Life.
of a irresponsible, you know, irresponsible decision by somebody who should know better. Um, it's crazy to me. And
And not
again,
just that,
go ahead.
when you make that type of money, man, order Uber. Get a
Mm-hmm.
personal driver. Your father's rich. You're rich. You're a coach. You're assistant coach on the Kansas City Chiefs.
And it also
Get a
shows,
driver.
right? And it also shows to me that people got to realize whether you rich or poor, how dangerous addiction is. You know, it's been documented that this particular kid, Brett Reid, has had history with this, with alcohol, drug abuse, and so constantly. So it's definitely an addiction, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
when it's not treated properly, and I'm going out on a limb to say that, I don't know what he's been doing, but obviously based on this result, this story, it hasn't worked. And now you got a life impacted. I mean, it's just astonishing to me, man. It's crazy. 3 years.
Yep.
That's just a walk in the park, you know.
Yep.
It even for me, the maximum sentence, which is what, 7 years?
Yep. That's
Like
not
you,
even a lot.
it's not a lot, you know, it's not a lot. So I don't know. This is a crazy story. I'm still trying to figure out, you know,
And
how
I'm
this
pretty
happens.
and I'm pretty sure he's not going to be in a maximum security prison.
No,
I'm
he's
pretty
not.
sure he's not. I'm pretty
No.
sure he's not.
And it says that the Chiefs reached a confidential agreement with the Ariel family in November to pay for ongoing medical treatment and other expenses. I mean,
Yeah, right.
I guess they felt the need to say that, but I mean, hey, I feel like he got off on this one. Um,
I would have loved to had grabbed some data of Black and Latinos and other ethnic groups and how many years they got for drunk driving crimes.
right,
That's next time I will have something like that to compare.
right. And man, I was afraid to even, I don't know. I'm afraid to look because I feel like whatever we find out, whatever that data shows, it's gonna be like guys are probably getting 20 to 25 years for this. You
Yep.
know? So this is crazy, man. Yeah, this is just beyond me. I don't know how. It says he was intoxicated, driving about 84 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone. when his Dodge truck hit the cars on an entrance ramp in Interstate 435 near Arrowhead Stadium on February the 4th, 2021. So this is crazy, but such is privilege.
Yeah.
Such is, and people wonder why people of different socioeconomic status and races, while we always say stuff about this, we always bring this up because it's real. I don't want people to think that we just making this up. I mean, this is crazy. Based on this guy's privilege, based on him having money, lawyers, and all that, and the lawyer system is built on how much money you got. I mean, this is ludicrous to me. This is 3 years. So, and like you said, the audacity, I want to echo that, to ask for probation is crazy. So,
yeah,
I'm with you, man. I wish I had much more, but it's just like, it's one of those stories where it's like, I don't know how this happens. I don't know how this goes, but it's definitely a sports story, but it's definitely a story for society just to see how much privilege works, how much, celebrity status works. It's beyond me. But I guess, man, it's just crazy to me.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into it. We got a whole section tonight about the Brooklyn Nets, in particular, starting with, I believe it was either on Halloween or yesterday, where the Nets started this process where they decided to part ways with Steve Nash. And they decided to fire him after, I believe it was a 2-5 or 2-6 record for Brooklyn, which I guess by those standards, they underachieved. First of all, were you surprised by this? Were you surprised by this firing? And, do you think it was a justifiable change? What do you think about this?
I wasn't surprised by the firing. I remember, I think it was when Nash was first hired, Kyrie Irving said something along the lines like, "We don't need a coach. We really don't need a coach." That already showed me who's running the asylum. I guess you would say is that quote that used to be used. Not to say that it's a crazy place for them, but it's just a quote. I just never really felt like he had a grasp on the team. I really feel like it's hard to really coach superstars unless you have a foundation of being a great coach in the league for years, where people respect you, such as a Doc Rivers, such as a Eric Spoelstra, such as a Steve Kerr, and some of these more prominent names. I feel like it's easier for them to coach big names versus someone this is their first time ever coaching. It's hard to get them to buy in, especially if you're not winning on a regular basis, especially if you're not making mid-game adjustments that affect winning. Then I think a lot of that comes down to like, we don't respect this coach. We don't want to play for this coach. And I think that a lot of that is what happened in Brooklyn when you have your two leaders. And then there's the dysfunction. I don't think that he's equipped enough to deal with the dysfunction that a more tenured coach would have been able to deal with, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I always thought that this was, and you know me, I've always been on record to say, I think this is going to be a failed experiment. And I definitely think, I'm not going to necessarily say that he's the scapegoat. This is what usually happens. This is usually the beginning when a team when a team underperforms. And if the organization has, a certain criteria they want the team to function at, this is usually the beginning process, is that the coach ends up taking the heat for the dysfunction. I'm not going to even say it's a dysfunctional organization. I'm going to say it's a dysfunctional team right now. I think it still remains to be seen if the organization as a whole is dysfunctional. But I will say this. Again, I thought this would happen. I never bought the fact that Steve Nash could do this. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not necessarily pointing at Steve Nash in terms of he's that incompetent. But I think with KD, him in particular, starting with him, KD and Kyrie are two individuals to me who are fragile. And what I mean by that is they're great players, but when it comes to winning, and I've said this on the record, I think both of them for the role that people want to put them in. And that role to me is defined as being the top player. And what I mean by top player is being the guy, the franchise guy, the go-getter, the MVP, the guy that goes out and does whatever he needs to do for the team to win, whether it be sacrificing scoring, whether it be scoring, whether it be, getting rebounds when necessary, whether it be getting a key play, whether it be a block or a steal, or whether it is making the right pass or making the right decision. Basically, what I'm saying about all those things, the guy that's willing to sacrifice to get the team over the hump. I never believed neither one of those guys was that guy. I do think and I do believe and I'm convinced that both of those guys are top tier scorers. But I've always said, and I tell you this all the time, that scoring is one aspect of the game. And just because you can score a lot of buckets, just because like Kyrie, nobody can stop you offensively, stop you from getting to where you want to get. Just because you're supreme offensively doesn't necessarily mean that you're the team leader. You're the guy that's going to be able to get the team over the hump. And what I mean by the hump is being able to get the team through the playoffs to the championship and possibly winning a championship. I've always been on record to say KD is not that guy based on his track record. Oklahoma City, Golden State, he played a different role. I think the role that he's playing now in Brooklyn is similar to the role he played in Oklahoma City. That's why they couldn't get it done. So I always thought that Steve Nash, because of, I think he was hired because he's a favorite around the league, and what I mean by favorite is people respect his basketball knowledge. But never coaching. I don't think he's ever coached high school or college, let alone the NBA. Not having that experience, I do think it plays a role, but it takes a special guy to deal with a KD and a Kyrie. And for KD, number one, I've always felt like he has a weak, I don't want to say personality, but he's too sensitive to be the top guy. Every time you look up, if somebody says something, a media personality like Charles Barkley, whether it be Stephen A., if somebody says something about him or somebody tweets something about him, he always has to come back with something. Kyrie, the whole social issues, the, taking a league of absence, the year of COVID, not taking the COVID vaccine, which he can, that's his choice. I'm not saying, everybody should be able to exercise what they want, but missing games, if you look at Boston, missing games, always hurt sideline, always doing something controversial. In Cleveland, the comment about basically saying since he got to Brooklyn when KD came over, or when he came to Brooklyn, because I think KD was there first. I can't remember. But the comment about this is the first team where I felt like I'm not the best scorer, and people kind of equated that or kind of said he was taking a shot at LeBron. Just all of that mental makeup in terms of him and Kevin Durant shows me that it's going to take a specific type of coach to get these guys to where they could possibly be. And I still, me, I still have doubts about it. And then you add an already fragile Ben Simmons, who to me, I still don't know the reason what happened in Philadelphia. All I know is he didn't want to be there no more. So when you add those three guys, and I'm throwing Simmons in that mix, and then you got the controversial, which we'll talk about with Kyrie, with the anti-Semitic comments. It's just a circus that I don't think Steve Nash, as far as his skill set, and I mean outside of his basketball knowledge, I don't think he was able to deal with that. And I even think he probably wanted to be out of there. Steve Nash is cut from a different cloth. Two-time MVP. has always been around a winning culture, whether it be Phoenix or Dallas. And
Mm-hmm.
he's from a different era. And so we in this Twitter era, this social media era, where these guys, Katie and Kyrie in particular, and there's a few others where it's all about what's being said in the media. It's all about responding back to when people criticize you. It's all about social issues. It's all about, well, I don't feel like playing today. Um, I just think that the Nets as a team, and I'm saying as a team because I haven't seen anything yet as far as the entire organization to say it's an organizational issue, but as a team, it's just too much of a circus. It's too many distractions. It's too many things other than basketball that's coming into the picture. So I think Steve Nash is and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I think Steve Nash is the um, first thing that's going to come apart with this ship. I don't believe it'll be successful. Just like I told you about Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyrie came out and said the other day, he ain't played basketball in 2 years. Give it some time. I understand that comment. I understand him sticking up for his teammate. But again, his stats in the first couple of games, I think what he ended up having like 1,000 fouls. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's got a whole lot of fouls and not a lot of points. And then he's not shooting the ball. He's doing the same thing. He's not looking at the basket. I mean, he's 6'10", and he's doing what he's doing in Philadelphia. So just all of that, to me, is a ship that's sinking. And I feel like this team is fragile just because those three guys, that leadership structure. So the coach is going to always be the first one to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that to say, I think Brooklyn is going to continue to go down. They may go to the playoffs this year just because they are talented, but it seems like the organization has expectations. Well, I'll make that. I will err on the side of caution for that. But I just think Steve Nash, he's respected for his basketball knowledge. I think it's going to take somebody to come in that not only has that basketball knowledge, but they got to be able to be what we call a player's coach. And what we mean by a player's coach is being able to deal with these different personalities. If you think about the quality of a Phil Jackson, he wasn't necessarily an X and O guy, but he
he's
was
the master
right,
personalities. Yeah.
right, and egos. Being able to
Mm-hmm.
coach and manage egos. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, which was probably not as bad, as far as challenging as it was the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq. And then, Phil Jackson being able to get Dennis Rodman, who, again, coming from the San Antonio Spurs with the problems they had with him down there, him being able to get Dennis Rodman, knowing how to coach Dennis Rodman, in the Last Dance documentary, they would they would give him a little bit of rope, but Dennis would always be there in terms of his performance.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that, having that quality, I think that's what it's going to take for the Nets. And when you look at the Lakers, the personality clash between Shaquille O'Neal, dealing with that, and a young Kobe Bryant coming up. So Phil Jackson has that quality. I think it's going to take that quality for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, again, even if that quality comes with their new coach, in which we're going to talk about in a minute, I still have doubts because unlike Kobe and Shaq, unlike Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, those guys didn't let the off-court stuff distract them. And people can come back and say, well, Bake, they weren't in the Twitter era. Okay, I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, those guys, no matter how different they were, no matter how much conflict they had, they all wanted to win. And so, as crazy as Rodman can be off the floor, he was always there. And when he was there, he was performing. The difference between Kobe and Shaq, Kobe's work ethic versus Shaq's work ethic. At the end of the day, when they both stepped on that floor,
they want the same thing.
Yeah, the one common thing that they agreed upon is that they wanted to win. And so I'm not sure if we get that from KD and Kyrie in particular. Ben Simmons, I don't even think he knows how to do that. But KD and Kyrie, we know they can score. But Cole, have you really seen from both of them this attitude I'm talking about as far as winning? Because the thing about winning is sacrificing.
So this is my vibe. My vibe when I think about the whole situation. I think KD wants to win, but I think KD's too loyal of a friend to hold his friends accountable. Because I think when the James Harden thing was going on, the Kyrie Irving was going on, I heard he didn't like how management was asking him to, step in, say something to Kyrie. Like, he's like, that's not my role. That's not my thing. And I don't think he wants to make waves with other players. I think he will say something to the player that's on the end of the bench, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th man, and try to hold them accountable. But when it comes to someone like Kyrie, I think he just lets Kyrie be Kyrie because he doesn't want to break their friendship that they have in their personal life. That's my take on it.
I mean, you could be right about that, but at the end of the day, what's the common denominator? Because the common denominator, whether it be that what you're saying or what I'm saying, the common denominator is, again, like I said, with him, our question in particular with him, our question the sacrifice it takes to be a champion. Whether it be, and again, I understand what he's saying. Okay, maybe that's not my job to do that. But if you the leader of the team, or people have crowned you the leader of the team, then you got to be able to pull your friends to the side when they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And you got to pull them along. That's what I'm saying. When it comes with a price, it comes with a sacrifice. We don't know if Michael Jordan, if you think about in The Last Dance, all the comments he said, and don't get me wrong, sometimes when I hear that stuff about Jordan, I'm like, man, is he on the borderline of being a great teammate or a bad teammate? But at the same time, it's pushing people when they don't want to be pushed. It's challenging people when they don't want to be challenged, even your friends. And so whether it be that what you saying or what I'm saying, I think it's all under the same umbrella. I don't get the sense from him that he's prepared to do, or maybe he is prepared, but he's not willing to do. Maybe he is willing to do, but he's yet to show that commitment to winning a championship. And the first sign for me, Cole, and again, some people think I'm extreme. I'm hard on KD. I am hard on KD because and this is fan talk. I'm talking about, I was a big fan of that Oklahoma City team. I thought that team, if they would be willing, as young as they were, and I think all those players, most of those players on that team, him, Harden, Russ, you had a Serge Ibaka who was coming into his prime. You had Jeff Green playing, out of his mind at that time. As young as they were, I mean, think about what came out of there. You had 3 league MVPs.
Yeah.
You had a guard who averaged a triple-double in the season. You had a player in James Harden who kind of changed the game offensively. You had all that firepower on that team. And at the end of the day, KD was the best guy on that team. And so going to the finals, challenging a LeBron at his peak, at the peak of his powers in Miami, with Wade playing as great as he played, Bosh played well. They showed up and they played, but they were young. But to come back the next year and face a Golden State team where you had them down 3-1 at your place in Oklahoma City, and you didn't play well, and I'm talking about Kevin Durant, which happens with young players. It happens. Jordan struggled, Kobe struggled. The best thing you can give for young players is experience. But you saddle back up and you come back next year and you grow from that. The first thing he did was he bailed out. And when he bailed out, he went to the team that he lost to. And so to me, and people say, well, you old school, because in the era when we was watching Jordan, we was watching Isaiah, you didn't go join those teams. You fought till you tried to beat them,
Exactly.
So to me, it was a telling story like, man, I don't think this guy, I didn't say he didn't have it, but he not willing to struggle for it. That's a bad sign to me. And so I'm sitting there looking at him like, why would you do that? Why would you leave all of that greatness? You underperformed. When they need you to step up 3-1 in Oklahoma City, had Golden State on the ropes, you didn't step up. That's fine. Take the criticism and get back in the saddle. Learn how to win, because winning, it takes, for young players, it takes a while. You got to learn how to win. In the NBA, you bail out. You go to Golden State, the team you lost to. And it's kind of like from the beginning, I was like, man, I don't know about this guy. Why would you? Because to me, it's like this. You go to Golden State, you win your championships. They don't validate you as the guy. So you want out. You go to Brooklyn. And to me, what you searching for in Brooklyn, you had in Golden State. I mean, in Oklahoma City. You had that. You were the man. Okay, Brooklyn might be a little bit older but you had young players who were relying on you. They put you back into that spot of validation of you being the man. And so it's just kind of like, what else do you want us to do, dude? And then it's always the complaining. It's complaining about this. It's complaining about the refs. Maybe he complained about the refs for a while. And so it's just like, everything that I'm saying about this guy, and now Steve Nash is gone, and that's the first part. But everything I've been saying about this guy is just coming into fruition. Like, I don't think he's the guy, because, and it's not, the sad part about it is this, and I know I'm going on and on, but the sad part about it is he has all the tools. He has all the tools. He has all the tools. He's 7 foot tall. I mean, think about this. He's 7 foot tall. He handles like a guard. He's unstoppable. Even as dominant as Giannis been, Giannis still doesn't have the skill set that Durant has. Giannis he's getting better with his jump shot, but Durant can kill you from anywhere. And, when have you ever seen Kevin Durant with the athleticism and the size that you got? I mean, how is it that Russell Westbrook, and this could be for a lot of players, but I'm just in particular, how is it Russell Westbrook can average a triple-double? And you have games and seasons where you may have 4 or 5 triple-doubles.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so even then, sometimes you get 45 points and you got 3 rebounds. Well, we knew you could score. And so, to build a team around a guy like that, and so far, people call me a KD hater. So far, I've been right. And so I just think Steve Nash, is he a scapegoat? Yes, but this is what happens when a team is starting to unravel. The first person that's gonna go is the coach, because that's the easy scapegoat, like you said. So I'm like,
I'll be the first.
I've always felt that way about it. Especially these guys.
I'll be the first one to say that I think that Kyrie is going to be the next one out the door. I definitely think that he's the most toxic person on that team. I think it starts with his first season when he took a hiatus for basketball for whatever reason it was. Exactly. I don't know why, but when you're starved the team just in the middle of the season, hey, I need a break. And then you follow that with the next season, hey, I'm not going to get COVID vaccinated when everyone else is getting COVID. And I'm not saying that's everyone's choice. That's your body, your choice. I'm big on that. But I do feel like that contributed to the morale of the team. It contributed to how people feel when your leader is not there and, in the trenches with you. A lot of times it's like what's going on? It's just like being in the regular workplace. If your boss is not in the trenches with you, backing you up or supporting you, even if they're not doing the frontline work with you, you're going to feel a certain way. So it's important for Kyrie to understand that hey, the things that you do, the actions that you make, you're one of the most popular players in the league. People are going to follow suit, and they're going to start thinking of Brooklyn as the dysfunctional organization.
There you go.
And then we come in, and we take another dysfunctional player. After we get rid of James Harden, we get Simmons. Simmons is a broken player, man, and I hate to say it, he's a broken player.
Can you? I mean, and you know what? I understand exactly what you were saying. When you look at what he brings to the table, he is a matchup problem. Defensively, he can guard all 5 positions. He can handle the ball well. He can pass well. But again, you know, like I said, when somebody quits, you know, it's like, because of this, and I don't mean to cut you off, but let's think about Philadelphia for a second. That team that he was on, and we're not going to go roster everybody on the roster, but in particular, him and Joel Embiid, that team was built around them. You know, they brought in players to complement those guys. Now, the years that he played, they made the playoffs. I think he had a couple of all-star games, all defensive team. So what? Y'all underperform. Philadelphia is a tough place to play, but they are loyal. When you lose and you play bad, that's what fans are supposed to do. They're supposed to boo you. You know, that's everybody. Everybody in the NBA, you know, fans are going to boo you. They're going to say things about you in the paper. Okay, big deal. You're not playing well. But at the end of the day, nobody, and this is just me stepping out on a limb, but nobody in Philadelphia asked him to be, in the first couple of years of his career, a tip-top three-point shooter. Nobody asked him to do that. They just asked him to be himself. And so what? That's the progression of players. That's the progression of a player. As you're young and talented, when you're playing, the best thing you can do is get experience. And so you go through that experience. And when you go through that experience, all those players from Jordan to the maturation process is, we didn't win. We didn't get as far as we thought. We were unsuccessful. So you go back home, you go in the lab, you fix whatever you need to fix. And if you couldn't shoot, you got in the gym and you made 1,000 shots a day. If you lack physical strength, you got in the weight room. You couldn't shoot free throws, you practice free throws. If your ball handling was loose, you went in the gym and worked on your ball handling. And that's the thing. Everybody does that once. Everybody that's won a championship, well, I'll go out on a limb and say this, but everybody that's won a championship had to get better at some point in their career. I don't care who you are. You had to go work on something. I mean, of course, there's Wilt Chamberlain, you know, but again, for the guys that win championships, for the guys that get closer as their career, that's what happens. You get booed. You get written about in the paper. People talk about you. But guess what? Everybody goes through that. But you quit? I mean, you know, it's so anytime you quit, and then not only do you quit, you sit out for 2 years. What does that do for you when you left the game in Philadelphia on a bad note mentally and emotionally? And then what do? You combat that. Gerard, you know what it is. When you're not playing well, you go to practice. The great thing about basketball is you have a short-term memory because you have so many games, and you get to the next game.
You
know, and he quits. And so it's like, I don't know. That's why I had doubts about him. Like, I'm not surprised that he's looking the way he's looking. And Kyrie makes the comment, well, he's been sitting out for 2 years. Well, with Kyrie, when you're not playing well, the worst thing you can do as a young player is sit out for 2 years because you're not mentally strong anyway. So if you sit out for 2 years and then you get back into a game, because you go through practice, but practice is not a lot of pressure. But you get in the game and people have expectations of you, And the longer you sit out, people are going to assume or think that you're getting better or you're doing what you're supposed to do to get better. And then you show up this season with Brooklyn and you still not, you don't even look at the basket to shoot the ball. I mean,
and I don't know what happened to him, because I felt like when he was in Philly, even though he didn't have a jump shot, he was attacking the rim. Exactly. He was trying to finish. I think it was that last playoff series when he couldn't even hit free throws. It looked like he was just trying to give up the ball because he didn't want to be fouled. He didn't want to be at the free throw line.
There's something, no accountability.
He's one player that I really feel can use a sports psychologist, because I think that's what's the part that's holding him back. Because talent-wise, he would get triple doubles. I remember him scoring 30 points in a game and having a 30-point triple double.
Right. He should be doing that in his sleep. He's 6'10".
Yeah. And he has speed of a guard. And he has speed of a guard.
Exactly. I mean, I remember at one point people were comparing him to LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because of some of the things he could do. He could pass the ball well. He played point guard. He could post up. I mean, you know, and so when you got all of these guys under this umbrella, and again, for me, the Nets, you know, I hope, and we're going to talk about what's going on next, you know, I hope this move, I still have doubts because I think the guy that they're bringing in, I think he's the right guy to bring in. I think this is the best guy you can bring in for this particular situation that's available. Of course,
to deal with their personalities.
Right. Of course, so Popovich is not available, you know. So they bring in, and we don't know if it's finalized, but we've heard that they're trying to finalize a deal with Ime Udoka, which I think he deserves a second chance. But they bring him in, and he's got a it's no coincidence to me in the sense that he's got a relationship with the GM, which I think is, what is it, Sean Marks? Yeah. They had a relationship together in San Antonio. And Udoka throughout the league, a lot of people couldn't understand why he wasn't getting a head coaching job faster, because he's gotten a lot of good reviews from players as far as being able to relate to the players, being a player's coach. A lot of the players like to play for him. And in particular, he's definitely got in particular, it's his relationship with the players, and he's definitely got a wealth of knowledge. I don't want people to think that I'm not saying he doesn't have a wealth of knowledge. He coached under Popovich, and so he's
coached under Doc Rivers too.
Right, coached under Doc Rivers, and so he's got. I don't want people to think that I'm not giving him his due on his knowledge. He definitely has basketball knowledge, but one of the things that he brings to the table is that guys want to play for him. You know, so in this particular situation, I think it's a great move by the Brooklyn Nets in the sense that, you know, of course, what happened in Boston, but I think what they need now, and I'll go back to what I was saying earlier, is that player's coach, that guy who can deal with these different personalities, that guy who can get a group of young men, and it's going to be challenging, but he does have the respect of players, in particular Ben Simmons. There have been reports that he's had success with Ben Simmons and that Ben Simmons really responded to his coaching. Again, I have my doubts, but, you know, you need somebody to come in to deal with KD and him being sensitive. You need somebody to come in to be able to deal with Kyrie, to make him understand that, dude, you need to be here. And you can have your social issues, but be able to separate your social issues and us being able to win ball games and us being able to move through the playoffs. Ben Simmons, you need somebody to, I don't know with him, is it reinstate his confidence? I don't know what it is. I guess it's to reinstate his confidence. You need somebody who can do all of that for these guys. And so I think he's the perfect choice. I ain't gonna say the perfect choice. But he's got a strong task. And I think if anybody is qualified to deal with this, because I think it's a mess, and I still have my doubts, I think he'll do in his power what any coach could do. But it comes down to these players, in particular these three. But again, Cole, I still have my doubts. You know, I
And
still
that's
have my
that's
doubts.
that's what it is that these players nowadays actually control the coach's destiny rather than the coaches controlling the player's destiny, unless you're one of the top 5 elite coaches in the league. And but I do agree with you. I do think he's the perfect person for the job because he will hold them accountable. I think he will challenge Kyrie and Durant. He may break Simmons a little bit more because I don't see him holding back on Simmons. I see him actually having a higher standard for Simmons, as in I'm not going to excuse that. Like maybe you need to go see a hypnotist and have them tell you to shoot a jump shot, no matter
Right.
what. Like, but I don't know. But I definitely think he's the guy for the job. What I'm more interested in knowing is what's that first interview going to be like when they ask him what happened in Boston? Is he not going to disclose? He is going to disclose because I'm pretty sure one of the disclosures that are going to be put in his contract for him to leave the Celtics is probably that he can't talk about it. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason why Boston is letting him leave because he's under contract is that they're probably saying, hey, one, we're not going to pay you the rest of your salary. New Jersey's probably going to pay you the rest of that. I'm pretty sure that's probably in the contract, but they're probably going to say don't disclose it because I'm interested in seeing why, if it was consensual, why wasn't the woman's name shared? I think they found out who it was later on in the media or something like that, but why wasn't it shared? And why wasn't the details behind it shared? Because it was a consensual relationship. That's what I'm interested in seeing, and also what's going to be the stipulation in his contract about him talking to women in the organization. Is it going to be like, hey, you talk to one person, you're going to be done with this organization if your name in the news? Because I feel like the one thing that's happened to the Brooklyn Nets is that everything is drama with them. They're like a soap opera, like a novella over there with Brooklyn. Is everything is crazy over there, from the way Kyrie is to the way that Durant responds to the news, to Ben Simmons not doing what he's supposed to be doing as a player. So it's just I'm interested in seeing the dynamic of the team because they have three dramatic players and they're adding a fourth dramatic player right now. So we'll see how it plays out. So,
But let me put you on the spot because that's a good point you brought up.
mm-hmm.
If you're, let's try to put yourself in the shoes of Sean Marks. If I'm saying it
Mm-hmm.
wrong, I apologize. But let's
Mm-hmm.
say you've had a relationship with him. Okay. Obviously, and I'll go out on a limb and say this. You, and I don't know how right I am, but let me just put you in a what if scenario. You've obviously pitched this to the organization that
Mm-hmm.
you've had a relationship with this guy and he's reliable. You've worked with him.
Mm-hmm.
What do you put? Do you put something in his contract? What do you do to sort of, how can I say? What do you do in terms of how do you guarantee, and you can't guarantee, but what do you put something in a contract to kind of gauge against what happened? Not
I
gauge, kind of try to prevent what happened. Because here's the thing: can you do that? You may not be able to do that, but do you put a stipulation in that says if it's anything inappropriate, this is what happened. This is what happens. This is the consequence. If you're in that GM spot and knowing you know this guy, you've been to war
mm-hmm.
with this guy, you trust this guy, and you've pitched this to the organization. Do you put a stipulation in? Do you have a conversation? What do you do if you bringing him in? You know, or again, if it's me and you, if you got a team and you know that I'm a good coach, but it's been a situation that took place where, I'm in the same predicament or place that a Emi Udoka is in. Do you put something in my contract to say, hey, Bake, to make sure that you're not involved in this anymore? This is what's going to happen if this took place. Do you restructure your organization where there's no women around in terms of that? Um, and that's not a good option. But I'm just saying, I'm putting you in the mind frame. What would you do as that GM?
I think one, you do have to have a stipulation in there. I think it protects yourself, but I think at the end of the day, Marks has to know that this has to work out because I think he's the next person to go from everybody else. Because you got to say, You had Atkinson, who was a great coach, and you got rid of him to bring your guy in, Steve Nash. That didn't work out. You had possibly 3 of the top 10 best players in the league, and the only thing you have to show for is 1 playoff round victory, and then a whole bunch of drama. So I think Sean Marks, he has to be calculated with the coach that he decides to choose for this role. And I think he's comfortable because of all his years with San Antonio choosing Ime. But I think at the same time, you also have to put stipulations in to protect yourself, because it's one thing for those things to happen, and we really don't know the full details. I'm hearing from, like, when you listen to YouTube videos or podcasts from Stephen Jack, or not from Stephen Jack, from Matt Barnes, or you listen to Malika Andrews on ESPN, and they talk about some of the stuff that happened that they can't disclose that they heard. It was a lot of crazy stuff going on behind closed doors with Ime. I'm not sure if it's true, so I'm not saying yes or no, and I'm not going to, try to promote negativity or positivity in either way. But to play it safe, I think you have to put some stipulations to cover your back, because you don't want to take on someone who may be a habitual person who's, with sexual assault, sexual harassment, or get some of that backlash from that let's say the Texans got from Watson. And I'm not going to categorize the two, because it was consensual. Again, it was consensual, so they say. And I'm not trying to make it any other way, but you have to protect yourself. And I think Marks especially, because this is his job right here. This is the final decision for him. If they don't make any headway towards, being towards a championship team, I could see him being fired at the end of the season, because he hasn't shown anything. With all that talent, you give me all that talent, I guarantee you, I promise you, I'm either going to be able to trade pieces to get great pieces to make that a great team, or I'm taking that team that we had and I'm taking them to the playoffs.
So
I'm taking them deep into the playoffs.
So you think Marks is on the hot seat? That's what you're saying.
I think Marks is definitely on the hot seat. I think he's definitely on the hot seat. You can't have that much talent. And the expectation when they came to New York was that they would win a chip. Just put them in the finals against the Golden State Warriors or the Clippers or one of those teams in the West. But it was supposed to be Brooklyn or the Lakers, yeah. Right. But it's a big letdown. The way Kyrie's been, the way that Harden's always been hurt. It feels like Durant was the only person around all the time. And like you say, I don't believe he could carry a team. You don't believe he could carry a team. I think he could be option 1B or option 2 to a great player who's going to take on the brunt of the media, who's going to take on the brunt of the backlash when the team is not performing. But I don't think KD is that dude that says, this is my team, I take responsibility for everything that's happening, this is on me. I don't think he's that guy.
So you agree that some speculations have to be in to protect if you're Sean Marks?
Yeah, definitely some stipulations. Definitely.
So let me put you on the spot again. What do you think? And you may or may not be able to answer this question because this requires thought, but what do you think you put in to kind of ensure? You definitely have a conversation with him in terms, and I'm talking about Marks in relation to Udoka. But what is it? Because here's the thing. Here's the issue. Just like you said, you got a lot of drama that you want to go down. And then you're adding, which means you may even, we know that it was consensual, it was reported, but you're going to take a hit marketing wise. You're probably going to lose a few ticket sales, and that's okay. That's going to happen when you got a controversial act coming in town or something like that. I want to call it an act, but you know what it is, the media coverage that's following Udoka. So what do you put in place? Obviously, you're going to have a conversation with him. Obviously, you feel like you know him, but give me, if you can, give me an example of how you start to build, or how do you get what is the speculation? Because it's a great point. I think you onto something. That's why I'm asking you that. But what do you do?
I think you got to ensure that the company policy is followed by everybody. You can't just put all the onus just on the coach even though he's the leader, one of the main figureheads of the organization, but you got to make sure that everybody from the top down, all the way to the cheerleaders, to the people that, work for maintenance, to the security, to everybody, that there's an understanding that you do not conduct yourself inappropriately at the job. You do not interact with each other and build these relationships with, player, coach, player, coach, maintenance, coach, security, coach, front office, coach, whatever, that there cannot be any relationships that are non-working relationships, I guess you could say. That would probably be in my company byline. So that way I could say, we'll have to release you. I'm sorry, you can't work here. This is a policy. This will reinforce, avoiding, sexual harassment, voyeurism, and all these other, sexual related things that can occur at the workplace. And I think that's very important for that to be established and understood. I will also put into place that I would never want to take a job from someone, especially from a woman who has earned it to be sitting on the bench or to be in the front office or be working closely with the coach. But I may have to institute when there's meetings that 3 people have to be in the meetings versus just one-on-ones, just to be safe. If I feel that he's still a threat, or if I feel he's a threat, or if I feel that inappropriate behavior is there, I would probably make sure there's always 3 people in meetings instead of just 1 and 2 when it comes to opposite sex. I know that ain't right, but for me, I'm protecting my investment. If I'm paying this guy millions of dollars and I don't want him to mess up, I'll do that. Same thing if it was Watson. This dude likes massages. I'm just going to make sure that when he does massages, that there's going to always be someone there to oversee it, to make sure that he's not doing something inappropriate. I'm investing $230 million if I'm the Browns. There's no way I'm leaving this dude alone with a female. I'm not going to give him the opportunity, even if it's true or not true. And I think these are the steps that they have to take with Udoka, making sure that every staff member understands that, keep your distance, respect each other, and make sure there's extra people in the room. It's even working in education. As an educator, there's times, I work with female students. I've always make it, and that's just for me being a Black male, and also I'm a person of integrity. I would never mess with a student, but I always make sure my office door is open. I would hate for a student to come into my office and disclose to me that something happened in their personal life and they run out my office crying. Has nothing to do with me, but the fact that she's running out my office crying, the image to everyone else looks a certain way. So I would definitely make sure I set it up so that we won't have to worry about that when it comes to MA. So,
I mean, I agree. It's. I think what you just said is probably the only thing you can do. You definitely have to have a talk with him, which I know they're gonna have. I don't know. For me, what I need to see from him is his mindset. Of course, I can ask the questions, Emi, what have you learned from this? And I can, based on what I know about him, and I'm speaking from Marx's standpoint, I'm probably confident that he has learned from it because I know his personality.
I will hope so. I would definitely hope
but,
so.
But I need him to convince me, because here's the issue, and here's what I need him to understand, and I hope he understands this. And I hope a lot of people, if you see this podcast, and I've said this before, for many of us, and I'm talking about people who look like us, our color, where we come from, most of us come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Most of us are minority, and I'm talking about that. And I'm talking about that in terms of Udoka. He's been able to transcend, he's young, and he's been able to transcend the quote unquote stereotypical head coach, meaning that he's a young Black male and he's successful. And he's worked hard to get there. But what I need him to understand, and I hope he understands, and I want everybody to understand this, in particular those who look like me and you, Cole, those who come from the same background like me and you, is that we work so hard to get to where we are. But we need to work twice as hard to stay where we're at. Yep. And so I need to have a conversation with him saying, do you understand that you've done a great job to get here, but you've got to take that same work ethic, you've got to take that same sense of urgency and apply it to where you are now in your career.
Yep.
Which means you got to have the same sense of urgency you had in terms of being careful, watching where you go and what you're doing. Now that you've learned and I believe you learned how hard it is for you not just to get to this point, not to just make sure that everything is taken care of in terms of the team on the court, but you also got to work hard to maintain a professional environment around the arena, around with your employees, whether it be female or male. You have to understand that you've made it to a certain level, but you also have got to work hard to stay here.
Yep.
You don't put yourself in situations if you know you've got a temptation, and temptations come to all of us. It could be a particular type of woman. It can be women, period. You have to work hard to not put yourself in a situation where you're weak or vulnerable. And that's real. You know, that's what I'm hoping he understands. And I'm hoping that people that are looking at this podcast, his story to me when I first saw what happened, and again, if it's consensual, I believe it's consensual, but at the end of the day, he needs to understand that you are a minority young coach. You're defying the odds just by those two things. So as hard as you work, and we know you've worked extremely hard to get here, you have to work 10 times harder to stay here.
Yep.
And you're going to odds are already against you. But things that you could control, you got to work hard at those. You know, so I need to have a conversation with him just to go off the back of what you said. I agree with what you said in terms of, you know, you are going to have to put some things in place to cover your back, but I need to have that conversation, and he needs to say the right things to me. And saying the right things is not necessarily saying specifically, but I need to hear in his tone of voice. I need to be able to sit down and look him in his face and see he's learned from this and how he makes me feel in terms of I got to work hard just to be here. Not just because I've gotten here, but I got to work hard. I got to have that same sense of urgency that I used to get here to stay here. You know, I know you got the X and O's. And again, you know, I also believe this. This is why I think this is a good move for them. I mean, hey, he's been through some adversity. And so he needs that experience to maybe get him through this experience to deal with these personalities, you know? So, you know, I think he's got to convince me of that if I'm interviewing him, which I do think he has learned because, well, hopefully he's learned the humiliation he took with him and his family, his news being put out there for everybody to see, which I think Boston was terrible at handling. But, you know, I hope that he can get that. He's got to convince me, though, if I am that GM, that he's learned something. Because when you learn something from that experience, now you know what to look for. Now you know what to, you know, watch out for. So he's got to convince me of that. But moving right on, let's talk about Kyrie. Let's stay with the Nets. Let's talk about Kyrie and his anti-Semitic comments. Or I don't even know if his comments is a tweet. Tell me what you got on that specifically, because I got a report here, but I want to hear what you got. So he basically, let me pull it up. He basically, according to CNN Sports, he used a tweet about a documentary, criticized anti-Semitic, stands by sharing a video by Alex Jones, and it looks like he used the video from the documentary. Let's see, what is it called again?
From Hebrews to Negroes.
Right. And I think the overall tone of that was it's a documentary that says it's deemed to be anti-Semitic, meaning it's how can I say that, against or condemning the Jewish population for their oppression of black folks in particular, or the African American, not African American, but the African descent or the African people. And so he basically retweeted something along that. I don't have the specific vocabulary, but it was brought off as this documentary was talking about how the Jews, again, I guess, persecuted African people. And then he says it's based on Ronald Dalton's book of the same name. Um, and Rolling Stone describes the book and movie as stuffed with anti-Semitic tropes. Um, and Kyrie issued a statement where he kind of didn't back down, or he didn't, where he says, in terms of backlash, we're in 2022 responding to all the backlash that he got from the Nets organization, different people. History is not supposed to be hidden from anybody, and I'm not a divisive person when it comes to religion. I embrace all walks of life. And he says, so the claims of anti-Semitism and who are the original chosen people of God, we go into these religious conversations, and it's a big no-no. I don't live my life that way. And it says several organizations have condemned him. These are the people who are condemning him. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, in the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets in particular, I believe the Nets owner, Joe Tsai, and he issued a statement, said he's disappointed that Kyrie appears to support a film based on a book full of anti-Semitic disinformation. And he also issues the statement, meaning the owner, Sai, says, I want to sit down and make sure that he, meaning Kyrie Irving, understands this is hurtful to all of us. As a man of faith, it is wrong to promote hate based on race, ethnicity, or religion. So, and then Kyrie responds, and I want to talk about this statement. I'm going to let you spin on this, but he goes, did I do anything illegal? Did I hurt anybody? Did I harm anybody? Am I going out saying that I hate one specific group of people? It's on Amazon, meaning the tweet, a public platform, whether you want to go watch it or not. Meaning, I think he's talking about the video. It's up to you. There's things being posted every day. I'm no different than the next human being, so don't treat me any different. So what do you think about this? You give your opinion, and then we'll talk about this a little bit. But what do you think? What do you think about this whole situation? Of course, we've talked about him in terms of his social issues and how, it seems like what he's involved with socially kind of impacts him. We know that he's been absent from the court because of his social beliefs. But tell me what you think about this. What is your overall feel about this? Of course, this is Kyrie.
It's a lot to unpack there. I would definitely it's a lot to unpack. I have to watch the video, and I'm actually gonna try to watch it this weekend to see what it's about. I don't want to pass judgment on either end, but I do think that the one thing Kyrie has to do is he has to be careful being a public figure. When you're a public figure, everyone's watching you, and it's just really hard to say without seeing the video myself to see what Kyrie's seeing and what people saying. But I'm pretty sure if everyone's saying the same thing, that it has a lot of anti-Semitic, backdrop to it. It's offensive. I'm pretty sure it is if people are offended. So I think Kyrie has to be understanding of being a public figure and being a voice that everyone listens to, that his actions can lead to more hate in the world when you have fans, because we all know there's certain people that if they say one thing, like Jim Jones when he ran those Colts, if he said drink that Kool-Aid, everyone drank the Kool-Aid. Now I'm saying, I'm not comparing Kyrie and Jim Jones, but we just gotta be mindful that we're not promoting the wrong things that can impact society in the way that we treat each other as individuals, as people, as a race, as an ethnicity, in any type of way. So before I comment deeply on that, I want to watch the video. But I will say that just know that for any public figure, when you're in the public eye, second think what you're gonna promote or put out there under your name, because it can have major impacts in you, to the way people perceive you, to the way people treat your family, to the way that your income comes in. Because I'm pretty sure he could easily lose his contract with Nike or anybody else who's down with him. So just rethink what you're going to post and watch what you're going to post. And if you do post it, stand by it. And that's the one thing I can't knock him. If he's standing by what he's doing, I can't knock him for that. he believes what he believes, and that's what he believes. And I think you have to, regardless if you like it, you got to accept it. There's a lot of people out there that do things against, you know, poor communities and blacks and Latinos, and I'm against them, you know, but at the end of the day, just be careful with your voice. Is all I'm saying. Be careful with your voice.
Well, and you know, I agree with you wholeheartedly. To Kyrie, the thing that he's got to be careful of, and I'm going to just add to what you're saying. This particular video, this particular tweet that he did, and this is what he has to understand. He has to be careful. Now, I'm going to give my opinion on him. I don't think, from what I've seen from him, and I don't know him, but what I've seen from him, I don't think he is a radical. Well, he is a radical, but I don't think he is a person who supports hate based on what I've seen. But at the same time, to echo what you were saying in terms of being careful. And a lot of people, and I urge this, Cole, we're on this podcast. People are going to see us. If we end up being successful at what we're doing here, we're going to have to follow the same thing that I'm about to say. He makes a lot of, I don't want to say controversial opinions. He says things that, can be controversial, but I think what he has to understand, of a lot of us has to understand it, especially when you're talking about, I think what he meant by this, and I'm stepping out on a limb of this, is that what I'm hearing from him is that, it says the Star Guard tweeted a link Thursday to the 2018 movie Heroes and Negroes Wake Up Black America. That Wake Up Black America statement there says is that it seems like for this movie on that title that they're trying to educate, maybe educate about history. Maybe they're trying to bring a point about history. But the thin line that you cross with that, and you have to be very careful with your words, is this. If you're talking about Black empowerment, there's a thin line between when you talk about this kind of film and what it represents. Because everybody looks through a different lens. You have to be careful of that thin line of Black empowerment and then hatred towards another race or particular people. And so you're exactly right what you said. You have to be careful of that. And whether you think, Kyrie, it's truth to this film, you have to be, because history is history. We've known throughout the history of man that different races and people have exploited other different races of people, not just with Black folks. Italians did it to Jews. There's different, throughout the history of man, different civilizations have exploited other civilizations. But what you have to be careful of when you're in a position that Kyrie is, if you're going to take a stand on this, there's a thin line, again, like I said, between empowering a race and putting down another race. And so what he's trying to communicate, I don't know what he's trying to communicate, but I can definitely understand why somebody of the Jewish culture will be offended. And he needs to take the time to be careful and carefully say what he's saying without spewing hate. Now, me, in my heart of hearts, I don't think he's a hateful individual, but I could see why somebody would be offended by what he's done. You got to realize that if you're going to do this, you got to make this very, very clear what you're saying. Because you can empower a race, but you can also discriminate, or it can look discriminatory
against another. Yeah, and like you said,
I urge him, and again, me and you, if we get into the public eye, we have to do the same thing
Mm-hmm. It's
because
not
it
even
can
getting into
come
the,
off
and it's not even
as,
getting into the public eye.
not
It's
even
it's not even if we get into the public life, to the public eye. It's everyday life. I can't use my platform to step on another race or another person or another gender in order for me to promote mine. You get
right,
what I'm saying?
right,
It's always got to be done in a way that's tactful.
right,
It's always got to be done in a way that's considerate of what other groups and other minority groups or other groups, period, are actually being affected by
right,
before I make such statements.
right.
Because I'm not gonna lift myself up and lift whatever it is I'm trying to lift up while putting someone else down just to promote whatever I'm
Exactly.
trying to promote because it's
Exactly.
wrong.
Exactly. And that's where he has to be more mindful of that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we all have to be. If you're going to
Mm-hmm.
empower your race of people, or even if it's not a race, if you're empowering a specific class of people, if you're empowering somebody, you
Mm-hmm.
have to be careful that you're not empowering somebody while exploiting somebody. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I tell my daughter all the time, black is beautiful. But I really explained to her that you're beautiful in the sense that what you see in the mirror is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But by no means does that mean that people that don't look the same as you are not beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to really explain to her that we are all beautiful. And there
Mm-hmm.
has been a time where people, and people still do it, when you look in the mirror, somebody will say you're not beautiful because the color of your skin or how you look.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing for her in particular is to understand that what you've been created to be is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody is beautiful. But I don't want you to internalize because somebody else has issues with themselves that you're not beautiful. What you see in the mirror, what God has created is beautiful, but not at the expense where you start thinking that you're better than anybody else.
Agreed.
And so that's what Kyrie has to remember. Now, you know, there has been racial things, but I think with him, there's been racial things in the past with different races of people.
Mm-hmm.
But he needs to, if you're going to call out a group, call them out as extremist. Don't
Mm-hmm.
call the entire group or race that because extremists
Mm-hmm.
do. There's a difference. There's people who represent a specific type of race or creed, but they're extremists, meaning that's a
Mm-hmm.
particular group of a race. That
Yep.
doesn't mean that's the entire race. You see what I'm saying? So you have to be specific if you're going to walk that line because there are black people who are racist. Those are
Mm-hmm.
white people who are racist. Um, there's different cultures where people are racist. There are
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic people who are racist, but not all Hispanics are racist. There's an
Mm-hmm.
extremist group in each culture since the beginning of time that have issues with everybody else. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the whole entire group. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you name a specific type of group and you say this is, you're making it seem like you're talking about everybody. And that's why I say his comments, I can understand why somebody of the Jewish culture would be offended. I get it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So again, he's got to be careful in terms of, now, it's lit a fire, and you got to be willing to deal with the consequences. You have
Mm-hmm.
to watch what you say when you make those type of comments because you can be misunderstood. And then the fact that he turns around and says he's not going to apologize for something, well, you got to live with that people in their minds, because you weren't as specific as I think you should have been if you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about a particular group. You're saying all people that can be seen as all Jewish people,
Yep.
so it's just something. That's why for me, I know who he is. but somebody's got to come in that organization to get them concentrated back on basketball. It's too many things, including Kyrie, that's taken away from this team being able to win ball games.
Yeah.
You know, right now, you just fired your coach. You're trying to move in a different direction as far as on the basketball court. And these comments on top of everything else is just not, it's not fuel to get better. And he's going to have to, eat these comments. He's going to have to accept some backlash from this. But that's why a coach is needed to come in and kind of get the ship. Everything is out of control right now in the Brooklyn organization. So with that being said, let's go to our last topic for the night, and it's a good one. What's going on in the rap industry? Why are we losing too many young kings to violence? In particular, just a couple of days ago, one of the members of the Migos group named Takeoff was shot and killed in Houston early in the morning hours. Apparently, the reports are saying that it was over a dice game. Which is very unfortunate because he was a very talented individual. And once again, there's a young black male at the end of this. And we just had not too long ago a young black male, a young black rapper, young African-American rapper rather, that was killed, gunned down in Los Angeles at a Roscoe's Chicken place. Everybody knows that Nipsey Hussle was gunned down in front of his store, I believe in South Central LA or some part of LA. Let me start off with this. The unfortunate part about this is, the common denominator for a lot of this is, of course, is that number one, it's a African-American male. Number two, it's of a particular profession, hip-hop, rap. And number three, it seems like it's happening in our community. Not saying that we don't know who the shooter is or it hasn't been revealed in terms of Takeoff, but it's happening when we're amongst our people. And it's unfortunate. But what people have to understand is this. When you're rapping, when you're in this profession, and the beautiful thing about rap and hip hop is that for mostly your inner city rappers, your rappers that are talking about where they came from, it gives America kind of a look into urban culture, how people come from nothing and make something out of their lives. And they don't go, the beautiful thing about it is that it's not going the traditional way where you went to school, or you're basically taking something, you're taking an art and you're perfecting it, and you've been able to put dollars behind it. You've been successful. You've been able to advance your family to a different socioeconomic status. But within that element, when you're talking about that, when you're talking about what's going on, people can misconstrue it, especially in our community, where you have some people who will be, there's some jealousy. There's some people out there that in particular, may be still involved in the lifestyle that you're talking about on these records. And so when you go from your city to another city, and things are coming up, whether it be something you said, something somebody interpreted. The sad part about it is that at the end of that, these young men are being killed in their community. And so what do you think in terms of that? Like, how are you gauging this? Because I want to play a clip after this, but I want you to give your insight on this, because you know, as there's so much more I want to say, but I'll show the clip. And again, this is a very important topic. And you know, Deion Sanders made a good quote about it, and I'm gonna play that for him. But I want to hear what you think in terms of this, because this affects both of us. It affects not only of us as far as our reporting, what we do, but in terms of these young men look like us, you know?
This is deep rooted, man. I think a lot of these things are deep rooted from slavery days, from the redlining of the housing market, to poverty, to media portraying black on black violence more than any other thing, to white executives running the hip hop industry, and promoting this type of music, which is you know, done purposely and intentionally, to us buying into the narrative of music and this type of music and this divisive music to an extent. And I'm not going to say all of it's divisive, because they're also depicting what we actually go through in our neighborhoods. But as the only way of getting out the hood, to what we even see and value as in, you know, what making it is. There's just so many different parts to this where we have to educate our people. Some of it is done systematically. Like I said, the redlining, the poverty, the things that they take from us, the education system lacking resources to give us opportunity. For us, when we get the opportunity to have the resiliency to go forward and put in that extra effort to create these spaces and create these places where we can learn and where we can bring up our young people to learn in safe environments, to mental health, to fathers not being in the home and not raising their kids. To there's so many pieces to this that add and contribute to what's going on. It's hard to pinpoint it, but I think it starts with having our conversations with our kids and telling them what it's like to love someone, to love on people, to not settle every single dispute with a gunshot or with fighting or with jumping or with stabbing. It takes that community that back in the day, if I did something wrong, that my neighbor could say something to me and I'll be scared that they'll go back to my parents, or I would just respect what the neighbor says. This generation is turning into that generation of, let me pull out my phone while I watch someone get jumped by 15 people or get jumped by 3 people. Let me post this to see how many likes I could get, instead of stopping and talking to the people in the situation and saying, there's an alternative to this. We could talk this out. We could take this to a boxing gym and we could do this the fair way. We could do, you know, there's so many different options here. I don't know where to start. It's just heartbreaking to just watch us just throw away our lives. He was 28 years old. 28 years old, like playing dice. You telling me that y'all couldn't compromise or have a conversation in some way, or even fight with your hands instead of shooting someone over a couple of dollars that you a millionaire anyway, you're gonna make that. I'd rather give that money than to give my life. Not being able to read the room and have emotional intelligence to where we can, you know, speak and discuss it. And I'm not blaming Takeoff, because I don't know what the situation was when it came to who started what, who could have said what, who could have pulled back, and who could have not said. But thousands, millions of Americans lack emotional intelligence. And I think it's getting to the point where it's not about going to school and teaching and telling people to learn about education and get your education. But now we're starting to get to the point where it's
about to wrap up. Let me play that clip.
And now it's to the point where people need to learn about the soft skills,
right,
and options that can lead to better outcomes. But I don't know. I'm just brainstorming right now. Like, I really can't respond because I just see so many discrepancies in our systems, you know? So
right. And you said a lot of powerful things there on a grand scale. But let me play and I thank you for that, because that's on a grander scale. That's a lot of questions that we need to answer. But for what's going on right now in terms of the young man, what happened, my condolences to his family. But I want to play this clip from Deion Sanders that he said to his players, who, when I'm talking about Deion Sanders, I'm talking about Coach Prime, who coaches at Jackson State. And he addressed this with his players. Now, the setting of this was in the locker room of Jackson State football team, college football team, rather. And this is him speaking to his team, by which they're getting ready to come down to Houston, and Houston being a place that Takeoff lost his life, unfortunately. But he's talking to them, and he's talking to, of course, a group of young African American men. But Cole, let's listen to this, because I think what you said is so big on a grand scale. But I want to talk about this in terms of the young black male moving forward as we transcend our situations, coming from where we come from a social economic status, from coming from where we were poor, or coming from where we didn't have a lot, to where we transcend into another area of life where we start to climb the socioeconomic ladder.
A couple other things that I need to address too. So Zim, I want you to put your arms around him, again, love and all of his cousins. Okay, so his cousin no longer with us, and his uncle, Mac Zimmer, the coach, son, is no longer with us. So I want you to put your arms around him, again, some love, as well as I'm just sick and tired of the consistency of people that are influential to you are leaving us consistently. That's our rappers. I don't know how true it is. I hope it's not true. But Takeoff was murdered in a dice game in Houston, where we're going. So that eliminates all y'all leaving that hotel, because it ain't happening until I give you further notice. So whatever her name is, whoever she is, parents, everybody, they're gonna come to the hotel to visit you, because y'all ain't leaving. Because I cannot lose one of y'all. Well, Coach, you can shoot that. The Bible says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I thought as a child, and I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Some kind of way, you guys got to become men. There's no way a man that has made it in life, has reached his pinnacle of the rap game, well known all over the world, is still playing dice in the city with a whosoever will, that's already jealous, envious of you. Sooner or later, we got to start changing our addresses, guys. That's an analogy to saying, I know we this, but we ain't that. We got to leave that behind that we once did. And that's what you guys are. Now you guys are Jackson State royalty. You ain't no man. You're not whoever you were a year ago. You're not even who you're going to be a year from now, which is a blessing. But you can't continuously do the things you've always done and expect to get the results. It's going to have to be a change. All of us are going through drastic changes. Have we, coaches? Have we, coaches? All of us are still evolving into what God has called us to be, and that's change. You cannot kick it with the same dudes you kicked it with. You cannot kick it with the multitude of women that you kick it with. You cannot associate in the same realms that you associate with. You're going to have to change if you expect change. You can't do it. It's going to come to a time, they can talk about you, they can mock you, they can ridicule you, they can cuss you out, they can clown you, whatever they want. But you're going to have to separate sooner or later. You're going to have to disconnect. Sooner or later, you're going to have to. So get that in your spirit. I'm sad because it just seems like it's always us. But we want to say we matter. We want to say we keep it in 100, but it's always us. Now we lose another soldier to some bull junk that when we look back at it, the gentleman gonna say, dang, now his whole life changed. Because now he's incarcerated or murdered in a consequence of what transpired. Because you know how the game is played. And I don't want y'all playing that foolish game, because y'all are valuable to your family, friends, loved ones, and you're valuable to us. All right, let's think about that. Let's pray for the families. Let's wrap our hands around my brother there. Matter of fact, let me start it right now. Come here, man. Love you. Appreciate you. All right. Love you, partner. Okay. Let's go out there. I took care of you today. If I give you some, what
Give me some back.
Well, give me some back. I'm on full speed. Okay, I'm on edge today because we're coming down the home stretch. And you guys need to focus. And some of y'all, I'm about one loaf away from getting ready. I'm telling you that right now.
And you can stop
Ain't no time.
That's that coaching coming out.
Yeah.
But no, the reason why I played that video, Cole, and just to again add to what you're saying, you're definitely right. That's on a larger macro scale. And we could do a whole show on what you just said. But in particular, you know, what he said that stuck out to me, and what I want people to take from this podcast is exactly what he said in terms of change. And when he said that, I thought, you know, even before I saw that clip, I said to myself, man, what was Takeoff? And then what were they doing shooting dice, you know, in another city, or just shooting dice, period, with the kind of money and status that they have? Why do that? And so one of the things that I wanted to bring to light is what he said in terms of when we start to change levels in life, whether it be socioeconomic status, whether it be something in the job world, you know, we have to remember that what God has called us to do is evolve. And you can't take the things that you used to do and take them when you go to a new level for God. That's the whole purpose of him. That's the whole purpose of us graduating, going to new levels. And it just bothered me that, and people could say, well, that's not the reason why he passed. And that could be true. But being involved in a dice game late at night, you know, why? Why shoot dice? You're a millionaire. The money that you're making off that dice game, you've achieved a certain amount, and I hate to say a status, but let me not say status, but a level to where you don't have to do that anymore. And then, you know, as well as I know, something like shooting dice can definitely turn into something that we just saw. Not saying that that's the full reason why he was murdered. But again, we need to understand, and again, it kind of goes back to a little bit about Udoka, understanding where you are and taking that sense of urgency to be really aware of where you are and what you're doing. You got to ask yourself, when you're making that kind of money that Takeoff and Amigos are making, and knowing, and they know the dice game well, we all know the dice game well. We shot dice, I shot dice. You know, we've bet, we've done things like that. You know, in that situation, things could go left quick. You know, why risk that? You know, why participate in that when you don't have to? Especially when, you know, usually you're shooting dice because you're trying to get more money. Maybe because you want more money, you don't have more money. Whatever your reasoning is behind it. But what he said in there, what Prime said, is that we have to accept change, and we have to be mindful and have that urgency that we can't do what we used to do. He quoted scripture like that. When I was a child, I thought of a child. When I became a man, I no longer thought as a child. I thought as a man. And that's so true. Even for those of us that's in the hip hop community, it's kind of twofold in the sense that you've made money off of telling the world about a reality that you've lived through. And that's great. That's what makes hip hop such a great art, is that we can explain to the masses, in particular America, how we've come from nothing, how we used to live from nothing to now where we are now. And we've been we've been blessed to make money off of it. But, and I always look to Jay-Z for this. He talks about it. He tells about it, but he didn't try to live it anymore. And so we have to take in consideration how important change is and how important evolution is, or how when you evolve, how important that is. There's no reason for you when you're making that kind of money to be participating in a street dice game. And again, I hope I'm not offending anybody. I'm not saying that's the direct reason why he died. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying you got to be mindful of what you're doing and where you're at. You know, and we got to remember that. Like, and that's a lot of things that we got to, when we in this rap game, we in the hip hop game, it's okay to talk about it because, again, it is an art form. But again, if you start to live it, and here's the thing, whatever you say, words are so powerful. We don't know if somebody was jealous. We don't know if it was behind a female. We don't know if it's an accident. We don't know if it was somebody was aiming for somebody else. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is, with that lifestyle, if you talk about it, there's things that come with it. If you live it, there's things that come with it. You know, not everybody gonna like what you say. Not everybody gonna move how you move. I mean, that's life, period, but especially in hip hop. So Deion's clip is so important, and I wanted to play that because we do have to accept change. If you don't change, you will die. And I'm not just saying physically. You know, I'm not saying, you know, a shooting or anything, but if you don't change, you're not learning. And when you're not learning, you die. You know, it's that simple. You don't move on to the next level. When you move to the next level, there's certain things that you got to leave behind. And I just thought that that clip was important because you asked a great question on this show. What, you know, what's going on in the rap industry that we're losing too many young kings to this violence? Well, I think one of the things that we got to consider is that these guys have to take into account that there are certain things you got to leave back. You got to leave it back. You can't take it with you. You know, you're going to ask that question, what was he doing shooting dice in a city that he doesn't live in, with the type of money that he's making? Why do that? You know, these are questions that are going to be asked. So I just thought that clip was, again, I thought that was very insightful by Deion, and I appreciate him telling his young team about that because it is true in any level of life. But, and again, let me reiterate, I'm not saying that's the reason for his death. I'm just saying that we got to be mindful of that kind of stuff. You know, but I just thought that was, coming from a coach to players, I thought that was very insightful for him doing that. I mean, you can add, if you want to add something to that.
No, I just think I think it's timely. I think it's necessary, need to hear. And it's honest, it's transparent, you know, and I think it's something a lot more young people need to hear, because there's a lot of stuff happening in today's society that wasn't happening in our generation.
Right.
Like you know, and I think that's gonna take us people in our age to really go back into these neighborhoods and talk to these young people and let them know that it's all right to love each other. It's all right to forgive someone. It's all right to have emotional intelligence and step away and realize this ain't the right situation to be arguing because it's about to lead to something else. And just be able to walk away from these situations that are, you know, unnecessary, you know? So, well talk by Deion.
I agree. Well, I think we got another good one in the books. Pretty powerful. Check us out. Again, it's been real. All the way from Mo City to New York. We're going to catch up next week and we're going to do it again. Me and Cole going to continue to come back, smash that like button. Thank y'all for tuning in to Debate with Bake podcast with yours truly, C. Bake. And of course, Cole, a.k.a. Rude Boy, bringing the fire as he usually does. I want to thank him for being consistent, and I want to thank him for bringing great material to the table. Stream this on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to your podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Please follow Mo Serious Entertainment on Instagram and Facebook. Again, smash that like button. Subscribe to Mo Serious Entertainment on YouTube. Catch you next week. We got more fire episodes coming up. We have a guest next week who we'll reveal to you later. Again, Cole, thanks for everything, man. I appreciate you doing this with me. I think we're creating a masterpiece. Just a matter of time for the world to find out about us. Congratulations, brother. Keep bringing the heat. And we'll catch y'all.
Likewise, man. Appreciate it. Peace.
Right. We out.